In this video, I want to talk about Hans-Georg Gadamer's book, Truth and Method. It's a book that I just started reading, and I'm relatively speaking, I'm still in the beginning phase. Just like many other philosophers that I try to read from a distance by reading encyclopedia entries, like Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy or Cambridge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, or some kind of introduction to their work. I've tried that several times with different philosophers, including Charles Sanders Peirce and Gadamer. If you read them from a distance, you get a completely different picture than what you get if you actually engage with their text. What you get from a distance is very simple, very straightforward. It's like, yeah, here is the notion of prejudice, the notion of tradition, and these key phrases, key words, and here's the organization of how these key phrases, and here's the bottom line. This is what he tried to do. He tried to introduce and develop philosophical hermeneutics. But what you get when you get close to the text is so rich, and it's not about the bottom line. It's not about the final conclusion. It's not about the take-home message. What you get is Gadamer, from the very beginning, he's concerned with figuring out the meaning of understanding. What is it? What do we mean when we say, or what can we mean? The range of meanings we can have when we talk about understanding something. Understanding a person, understanding a piece of religious artifact, understanding a movie, a piece of art, understanding a text, and the kind of understanding that a scientist has after they interpret some scientific results. What he tries to do is to open up, have a picture, have a concept of understanding that is big enough, that doesn't dismiss natural sciences and doesn't distort our concept of the human sciences. So let's just begin from the very beginning of the book, when after he says what he tries to do, and he's very clear. The text is pretty simple, easy to read, but it's very dense. You see the figure of somebody who's intense at study, and you actually feel him studying the history of ideas and connecting the traces across different times and across different thinkers, traces of how they understood a concept. At the very beginning, and this is all I want to talk about in this video, he puts forward 4 key concepts that come from the humanist tradition. These 4 concepts are the concept of common sense, or sensus communis in Latin, which is it's not really the same as common sense as we talk about it. It's the concept of Bildung, or roughly translated to education or formation, and judgment and taste. He starts by talking about Bildung first, but I want to talk about sensus communis first, common sense, what it is to have a common sense. Common sense comes from belonging to a community, acting appropriately in a community, and knowing how to act appropriately in a community without always being able to explain why, being able to explain all the rules. In the history of ideas, common sense has been, by people like Henri Bergson, the French thinker, philosopher, was referred to as the social sense, the sense that allows us to, in a social setting, act appropriately. A person who is civilized, socialized, can act appropriately according to the social context. He refers to a German theologian, I think his name was Friedrich Christoph Oettinger, who refers to common sense as the heart, the person's heart, and kind of a faculty, a capacity to grasp some things that are beyond just the cold, mechanistic, mental. Like, you don't just grasp something with the mind. You don't grasp your relationship with your son or with your father, with your mother, just with your mind, but with your heart. That's also related to common sense. And we have this English figure, Shaftesbury, who talked about common sense, and he says common sense comes with some elements like having wit, being witty, shows high level of common sense, being funny, having sense of humor. And another concept that comes here is tact, being tactful. When we talk about somebody who's tactful, we are talking about someone who has the ability to behave appropriately without always directly talking about something. When a child says a dirty word in a gathering, the adult who is tactful doesn't say, "Oh, you know that word, the meaning of that word is this, or you should use this word in this context." The tact is you can keep a distance and let something go by you or pass by something, which is different from ignoring something. Being tactful is different from ignoring something and engaging with something. It's about keeping the right distance. So again, all these are related to forming a common sense, something that comes with belonging to a community. Now, with this community, out of this sense of community, emerge these other senses of Bildung, judgment, and taste. Bildung is formation, education. What I learned from Gadamer's book is that Bildung is a process of opening up a space where you can go to that space and then come back. So, for example, you learn to read ancient philosophical texts, or you learn drawing, oil painting, or you learn to play an instrument, or you learn to play tennis or rock climbing. Every one of these things involves Bildung. It involves formation. It involves opening up a space where you go to that activity, you do something that is specific, special to that space, to that activity, and then you come back from it. So somebody who has gone through Bildung has a wide space of available positions where he or she can go to them and come back. And each position involves transcending the initial prejudices, the limits of the person's prejudice, subjective prejudices, and possibly reaching a viewpoint that is more universal, that is more general, that is more available to a wider group of people. The other concept, judgment and taste. Now, judgment and taste are related to each other, and I discovered again through reading this Truth and Method that something that was done by people like Immanuel Kant. There's a tradition, Gadamer says, that begins with David Hume and John Stuart Mill, perpetuated in Germany by Kant and Kant's followers like Helmholtz, who devalued the role of subjective judgment, separated the process of judgment from belonging to a community, and replaced that with other concepts like taste, artistic intuition. But even taste is not just subjective. Taste, Gadamer says, is something that is related to truth. Taste, the moment we understand the concept of taste, what taste is, what it means to have taste, we understand that it's possible to have good taste. Taste always tries to be good taste. When somebody claims that, oh, this is my taste, this is my preference, implicitly in that claim is the claim that this is good, this should be preferred, that there's some truth to it, that there's some connection to how things actually are. So taste always tries to be good taste, and always tries to send a message of this is how a community should evaluate. That's why taste is different from fashion. It tries to be connected to truth, to value. So what Kant did is made taste subjective. He said taste is just about appreciating beauty, the beautiful and the sublime, and it's not related to the truth, and elevated the status of natural sciences, as the natural sciences is our ultimate standards. And human sciences, it's complicated, it's not as important. So anyways, so this is how Truth and Method actually opens up. It is not like those encyclopedia entries. And I would highly recommend this text to people who are within natural sciences, like natural scientific psychology or quantitative social science, and people who are in those fields and have an sense of unease. They feel uneasy. If you are in a quantitative social science and you already feel good about yourself and you feel superior about your methods, then you don't need to read Truth and Method. But if you have that sense of unease about that, these methods distance us from human understanding, from human ways of getting in touch and knowing things, then Truth and Method is a good way to start addressing that sense of unease. Okay, that's good. It's a good way. This is a good place to stop this take one, and there will be a take two, hopefully.